The force was so strong that it made her face turn red on the spot. Yi Zhen, how dare you hit me? I'm going to hit you. Yi Zhen said bluntly, if I don't hit you, am I supposed to stand here and let you hit me? You. Yi Zhen's hand used a skillful force. The moment he let go, he also pushed Yi Ningen out. She was pushed back 3 or 4 steps. She was wearing high heels again. Her body lost its balance. Yi Ningen lost her balance and fell to the ground just like that. Ah. Yi Ningen let out an ah. Her butt hurt from the fall. Not only did it hurt, it was also because she was wearing an A-line skirt today. When she fell, her underwear was exposed. There were delivery boys, people who came to the company for work, and people from the company. They all watched Yi Ningen fall to the ground. Yi Zhen looked at the black cloth inside, and his eyes couldn't help but be tinged with a smile. Such an embarrassing thing today should be enough for Yi Ningen to keep a low profile for a while. Was good. She could use this time to think about what she was going to do next. Yi Zhen, I'm going to kill you. Yi Ningen realized that she was exposed and that someone had seen her. She was ashamed and embarrassed. She was going crazy. She wanted to get up and grab Yi Zhen. However, she was wearing high heels and an A-line skirt, so her movement was not so smooth. The sole of her shoes slipped and she actually sat back on the ground. With a tearing sound, her skirt was torn. This time the outside of her thighs was also seen. Yi Ningen stood up angrily. Looking at Yi Zhen's figure that had already gone far away, she lost her usual demeanor and shouted, Yi Zhen, I'm going to kill you. Yi Zhen's people had already left the company. She could still hear the roar from behind her clearly. She walked outside expressionlessly, but her eyes were cold. What was Chen Wan feeling guilty about? After getting into her car, she took out her phone and called Ling Xian. Jinjin, what's wrong? Ling Xian thought she was asking about the recovery of the video. The people I hired are still recovering the data. It's not done yet. Wait a few more days. She was also anxious, but this was really not so easy. It's okay. That's not what I want to talk to you about. Yi Zhen thought of Chen Wan's expression just now, and her palm holding the phone began to tighten. I have another thing I want to ask you for help with, but it may be a little difficult. If you have something to say, just say it. Who am I to you? Yi Zhen looked at the traffic in front of her. Let's talk when we meet. It's not convenient to say it on the phone. Okay. Half an hour later, Ling Xian looked at Yi Zhen sitting opposite her, and her eyes widened. You're not serious, right? I'm serious. Yi Zhen had never thought in that direction before. First of all, her mother's death was not a matter of a day or two. She died of illness. The environment around her was a mess, but Yi Zhen didn't care about it. Li Junxing hugged her and gently kissed her on the hair. Are you feeling better? Yi Zhen didn't answer his question. She just rubbed her face against his chest. Chapter 790. With that, Yi Zhen was the first to raise his hand. Chairman Jiang and the others did not move. Yi Nanshan smiled. He did not believe that these people would be manipulated by Yi Zhen. However, in the next second, Chairman Jiang and the others' actions made Yi Nanshan's expression change. Chairman Jiang, Chairman Zhang, and Chairman Shin raised their hands at the same time. They only looked at Yi Zhen, not daring to meet Yi Nanshan's eyes. Yi Nanshan clutched his chest and looked at these people in disbelief. His chest heaved up and down heavily. He glanced at Chairman Zhang in shock. Old Zhang Yu, Chen Wan's expression was ugly. She did not expect things to turn out this way. Old Shen Yu, Yi Nanshan could barely stand. Chen Wan hurried forward to support him. Nanshan, how are you? Are you okay? As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen, you've gone too far. How could you treat your father like this? I don't have a father like that. Yi Zhen stood there expressionlessly. His eyes were cold. I don't have a father who cheated on my mother when she was sick. I don't have a father who would humiliate his wife in heaven for some shares or property. I don't have a father who is biased and only cares about other women. Father? He doesn't deserve it. Yi Nanshan was a good father to Yi Jianhao and Yi Ningen, but not to her. You rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan's voice trembled. You want to be the chairman? In your dreams. Chairman Yi, I suggest that you calm down. Compared to his exasperation, Yi Zhen was much calmer. She looked at Yi Nanshan coldly. You already know the results of the vote. What you've done is indeed unworthy of being the chairman. Everyone's vote was just the right choice. I don't deserve it? Yi Nanshan was furious. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If I don't deserve it, who does? You. Yijin smiled. She sat down again and looked at the other 3 shareholders. Uncle Shin, Uncle Zhang, who do you think is suitable? The 3 shareholders looked at each other. In the end, Director Jiang stood up and looked at Yi Nanshan. His voice was soft and he looked guilty. But when they thought of Yi Zhen's backer, the last trace of guilt disappeared. I suggest that Yi Zhen be the company's chairman. I agree. Zhang and Shin Erdong followed suit. Yi Zhen raised his hand, a faint smile on his face. I agree even more. Yi Zhen acted as if she didn't see his ugly expression. She stood up and looked at Yi Nanshan. Chairman Yi, no, I can't call you that now. Could you please give me your office tomorrow? I need it. Don't go overboard. Chen Wan took a step forward and acted as if she was standing up for her husband. Nanshan is your father. I know, I don't need you to remind me. Yi Zhen's expression was indifferent. Director Yi, that's all I have to say. Chapter 792. Retribution? Yi Zhen narrowed his eyes and walked to Yi Ningen step by step. A person like you dares to talk about retribution in front of me? Let me tell you, if there is retribution in this world, it will only happen to you and your mother. Her expression was cold and her gaze sharp. For a moment, Yi Ningen's momentum was actually seized by her. Yi Ningen's fear only lasted for a moment. She quickly regained her composure and said, Don't be complacent. Do you think you can sit in the position of chairman? In your dreams. I'm telling you, you won't get away with this. You can't compare to Daddy at all. Just wait to be pulled down by others. Alright, we can give it a try. Am I going to be pulled down, or am I going to sit firmly in this position and watch your father, you and your mother lose everything? Who doesn't know how to talk tough? Yi Zhen didn't think that he would lose if he talked tough. Yi Ningen's chest heaved violently. She looked at the arrogance on Yi Zhen's face and felt very angry. Lose everything? Who do you think you are? Why? Because I'm the chairman of Jianghui Company. The security guards came up at this time. Yi Zhen waved his hand, and 2 security guards stepped forward to take Yi Ningen downstairs. Yi Ningen kept struggling and refused to admit defeat like this. Yi Zhen, you bitch. You will die a horrible death. What right do you have to chase me away? Let me tell you, I also have a share in the company. I'm also Dad's daughter. The 2 security guards wanted to drag Yi Ningen again, but Yi Zhen stopped them at this time. She walked in front of Yi Ningen. Her incomparably beautiful face was filled with coldness at this moment. She just stared at Yi Ningen with a cold gaze. What did you say? Yi Ningen looked at her as if she had suddenly found her weakness. She sneered, What? Are you afraid? Afraid? Why should I be afraid? Because I'm also Dad's daughter. I'm telling you. Because I'm also Dad's daughter, I naturally have half of the company's assets. Yi Zhen didn't speak. She looked at Yi Ningen with a dangerous look. Are you my father's daughter? Yes. Can't I? Yi Ningen seemed to have finally made a comeback. She smiled quite proudly. Let me tell you, Yi Zhen, why are you still yelling here? Be careful or I'll get a lawyer. If that happens, you won't even be able to keep the shares you have now. She suddenly exclaimed with a smug look on her face, Speaking of which, you'll lose your shares sooner or later. After all, your shares were obtained through improper means. The smugness in her eyes was really dazzling. Yi Zhen sneered and took a step forward. She got close to Yi Ningen's ear and spoke in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear. You want to be my father's daughter? Your mother used to be a prostitute on West Street. Who knows how many men she slept with? You don't even know which man's bastard you are. Because of this, the 2 of them separated for a period of time. Later, when Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui were officially married for less than 3 years, Chen Wan came to Yi Nanshan again. The 2 of them didn't know what was going on, but naturally they rolled together again. This time it wasn't just once or twice. Yi Nanshan's moves were not new. He helped Chen Wan settle down. To prevent Lu Hui from finding out, he arranged for Chen Wan to stay far away from the Lu family's villa on the other side of the city. In this way, even if he had to spend half a day to see Chen Wan, he was willing. After all, only by being far away would he not be found out. Later, Lu Hui got pregnant and had Yi Zhen. When she first got pregnant, because Lu Hui's pregnancy wasn't good, the Lu family was very concerned. Yi Nanshan was afraid of being found out, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Therefore he rarely went to see Chen Wan. Instead, he began to focus all his attention on Lu Hui. That was the time when he and Lu Hui were at their best. However, it was also at that time that Chen Wan found out she was pregnant. She was scared and desperately called him, asking him to appear. Therefore there was what happened later. Yi Nanshan couldn't let Chen Wan abort the child. Therefore, while comforting Chen Wan, he also had to prevent Lu Hui from finding out. Fortunately, because of Yi Zhen's birth, Chen Wan focused all her attention on the child. Because Yi Nanshan had a chance to breathe, he asked Chen Wan to give birth to the child. Chen Wan didn't know what to think, but she finally agreed. Then she gave birth to Yi Ningen. However, no one knew what happened after that. Chen Wan left Yi Nanshan alone. Yi Nanshan looked for her for a long time. The reason why she left was not shown, so Yi Zhen had no way of knowing. Yi Zhen shook her head with a firm expression. I want to win against him fair and square. She said it very easily. It was hard to hide the nervousness in her eyes. Li Juanxing's heart ached a little. There was no need for her to experience these things. He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. It wasn't appropriate to accompany her to court. After all, he was too big a target. However, it was okay to use his way to make her less nervous. Sure enough, after being kissed and hugged by him, the nervousness in Yi Zhen's heart dissipated a lot. Uncle Li, she gave him a warm response and let herself indulge in this almost indulgent happiness. As for other troubles, she would think about them later. Yi Nanshan sat in the plaintiff's seat. Yi Ningen and Chen Wan, who were in the audience, attended with him. Yi Zhen sat expressionlessly in the defendant's seat. She never thought that one day she would go against her biological father in court. The trial soon began. Yi Nanshan had Lu Hui's medical records from back then. There was also the will. However, Yi Zhen had another will in her hands. More importantly, she also had the medical records from back then. The doctor's statement was completely different from the medical records provided by Yi Nanshan. Yi Nanshan's lawyer was Lawyer Ding. He seized all the loopholes and led the matter to the side that was disadvantageous to Yi Zhen. However, the lawyer Yi Zhen hired was also very famous. It was Li Junxing who had recommended him to her. This person had some connections with Tang Mohan's family. His surname was also Tang, and his methods and abilities were top-notch. His tongue was like a lotus flower. No matter what trick Lawyer Ding threw at him, he could smoothly take it. Lawyer Ding repeatedly emphasized that Lu Hui had a mental problem at that time. Lawyer Tang's side was not inferior. He directly threw out the hospital's diagnosis. He said that Lu Hui only had stomach cancer, not mental illness. Lawyer Ding retorted and said that Lu Hui was depressed because she had stomach cancer, which was why she might have a mental problem. Hearing this, Yi Zhen was so angry that she almost laughed. She looked at Lawyer Ding and wanted to refute. Lawyer Tang gave her a look that told her to calm down. Before Ms. Lu Hui died, she was still negotiating the next cooperation project for the company. I want to know how a person with a mental problem could have such ability? Now the other party's lawyer is saying that Ms. Lu Hui has a mental problem? I think you're the one with a mental problem. Objection. Objection to the other party's lawyer's personal attack. Objection sustained. Lawyer for the plaintiff, please watch your attitude. We only look at the evidence. All our evidence shows that Ms. Lu Hui had no intention of giving the shares to Ms. Yi Zhen when she was alive. We all know that the last will is guided by the last will. My client can refuse to answer. Your Honor, my question is definitely related to the trial and the evidence I'm going to present later. I sincerely ask the plaintiff to answer my question. Yi Nanshan looked at Yi Zhen. He didn't quite understand why she was asking this question, but he still gave an affirmative answer. Of course I love your mother. Since you loved my mother, how could you bear to accuse her of having a mental disorder after she passed away? What do you know? It's a fact that your mother is insane. Yi Zhen, don't talk nonsense just because you're unwilling to return the shares to me. Fine, I'm talking nonsense? Then Mr. Yi, you said you love my mother. How could you cheat on my mother not long after you married her? Yi Zhen, what nonsense are you talking about? Yi Nanshan's expression changed, and his expression was stained with coldness. Yi Zhen smiled. Your Honor, Mr. Yi keeps saying that he loves my mother, Ms. Lu Hui. But in fact, not long after he married my mother, he cheated on her and betrayed her. Under such circumstances, I don't think he loves my mother. Since he doesn't love my mother, how could my mother give him all the shares? That's impossible. Do you have evidence that Yi Nanshan cheated? The judge asked. Yi Zhen nodded. Of course I have evidence. She glanced at Lawyer Tang. Lawyer Tang took out a document at the right time. We have a DNA report. The report shows that Miss Yi Linghan, who is sitting in the audience right now, and Mr. Yi Nanshan are father and daughter. In other words, Mr. Yi Nanshan cheated on Ms. Lu Hui at the beginning of their marriage. Objection. Defendant. This kind of emotional issue has nothing to do with today's trial. Lawyer Ding stood up. His face suddenly had a trace of anxiety. Yi Zhen looked him in the eye and his voice was unyielding. Lawyer Ding. Mr. Yi, I want to talk about the issue. It happens to be related to today's trial. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.